Well, hello again. Welcome back to the next episode. The next episode from the previous time that we recorded an episode for this episode of this week. Welcome back. We are so glad that you all joined once again for the insane wildfire catching the entire world of a podcast that this thing is.
Just in case you didn't know, this is the newest episode. It's the next
Yeah.
next episode.
Yes.
We do one a week, or we try to. And just in case
We've
he
been
didn't
pretty
make
good
that
at it.
clear enough, this is the one that comes after the one that we did before, making it the next after that one. And then the one after this will be the next one, but this is the one we're on right now.
Yeah. It totally reminds me of that episode of South Park where it's global warming or whatever. And they're like, when is this supposed to hit? They're like 2 days before the day after tomorrow. My gosh, that's today.
That's today.
Everyone starts freaking out, and it's like Godzilla's attacking their little town or whatever, and they're running from nothing.
Global warming.
No, run.
No, then the line that everyone says as they're like quote unquote dying, which they're obviously not, is like, we should have listened.
Oh my gosh, dude. That has to be one of, I mean, not like no other episode of South Park's not creative, but like that has to be one of the more crazy creative episodes I feel like that they've done.
Man, I don't think you realize how many South Park episodes there are. Like,
Well,
I
they've
don't, I
been going
really
for
don't,
what? 20 years at least?
bro. They've been going for like nearly, I think, over 25 at this point.
Gosh.
Yeah, it's on record. I mean, I don't know if I don't really consider The Simpsons still going. Like, I guess
Yeah.
they can say it is, but I don't, like, there's never been a time, and I don't have TV anymore, but that I've been on any type of TV that I've seen The Simpsons randomly pop up. But South
Yep.
Park, and I guess you could say that South Park has slacked in the recent years in regards to releasing actual seasons. A lot of times they will just make a one-off episode now or a one-off three-part series about something really funny going on, or that they want to comment on. But man, and it's really cool. They teach classes on how to write stories. And like I saw one, and he was saying that if your story has at any point it says and then he's like, then the story's ruined. And he was teaching a class, and he said you need to have because and therefore.
Mm.
Or like I forget what it was, but it made so much sense when you just like you kind of break it down. You're like, I can see how that would build a cascading story that had a main point, that had, a central theme of a problem they're trying to solve. And I think it was one of the words was therefore, and then, or maybe, okay, it was what maybe I'm getting this wrong, I don't know, but I think what he said was if your story has because in it, it's and then and therefore.
Interesting. So like you don't
Yeah.
need to justify like, well, we did this because, or this happened because. You don't need to like sit there and create a whole separate backstory as to why. You just go off and make a continuation of what you've talked about so far.
I think you're right around the point he's trying to make. I don't know if this is right. I could be very wrong, but I think what the point he's trying to make is that because leads to a singular thing,
Right.
and because now you're making a point about whatever was before that, and then and therefore, like I went to the store and then a bomb blew up, therefore I couldn't get back to my house, and then you see how that
Yeah.
kind of like you don't stop until you create a good enough story that you are like, okay, now this has some robustness to it, and
Right.
we can. But I mean, it was just all that to say that the original point I was making is that shout out to Zen. The original point I was making is
This is not a sponsor by Zen, by the way.
I wish
Full
also
disclaimer, this is not
Voodoo Ranger
sponsored
as
by
well, right?
not
Yeah,
them either.
they're gonna take money from us. They're gonna be like, you guys made money on that episode, give it back.
Well, it's funny
But
because like in post-production, real quick, I was gonna say about sponsors,
yeah,
you literally have to answer questions like, does your podcast episode contain sponsorship endorsement of any kind. So it's like you kind of have to walk the line
Yeah.
pretty closely. Disclaimer, this is not sponsored by anybody
Right.
yet.
Disclaimer,
Yet.
we make no money on these episodes.
Crazy to believe. I know it's hard to believe. Like we were talking yesterday, we just have so much money, we like to pretend we don't have it. So
Yeah.
we're just
I
continuing with
struggle.
that thought.
I struggle because it allows me to see the other side of life that I don't have to live on. And that way I can gain a realistic perspective. But all that again, just to say that
Exactly.
if you think that that is one of South Park's more creative episodes, the global warming one, bro, just go through the seasons. There are hundreds of South Park episodes, and it is just like I will say some of them were not good, but in your
Hmm.
if you're a South Park fan, you just kind of start picking up on the nuances and you can appreciate it
Right.
regardless. Like one episode that I thought was like a horrible episode I never got was called the Jack Officers. Not even going to go into. I don't think it's an appropriate. I always start the
Yeah.
conversation by saying
Yeah.
something just like, and I'm like, we look back, and I'm like, I didn't mean to say it.
Egregious. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Was that
So
was that is that
keeping
your
that
view
in,
on it? Egregious?
yes,
Isn't that what you told me
egregiously
when I asked?
egregious. You're just egregious. That's my new favorite word of the week. Just kidding. It's just like that'd be a good word to use in this situation. But I was going to say, if you had to pick, and I know we've had this conversation before, but if you had to pick, just say 3 of your most classic episodes of South Park,
Dang.
I mean, it can be anything, regardless of however funny it might be, creative it might be, whatever it is, just your top 3 episodes. If even if you're able to pick, I mean,
Can I
just
do? Can
name
one of
3.
them be one of the series that they released that wasn't like part of any season?
Sure.
First one is definitely the Imagination Land trilogy. Like my gosh, one of the and it mixed so many elements from so many other funny stories like Man Bear Pig and had so many
Yep.
different characters. Like it made fun of everything. There was nothing it left untouched. Um, in the later seasons, I really love how they started centralizing around Randy because he was just
Yeah.
this character that had so much funny
Integrity.
potential. Yeah, Integrity Farms and like I can't really pinpoint an exact one, but anytime Randy gets involved, it's just like downright hilarious. I think obviously one that you know is definitely if it's not on the list, like I don't think 3 is a fair number, honestly. There's so many good
Yeah.
ones. But
So it makes it a
the
good question.
World of Warcraft, I mean that
Yeah,
one is
make love,
just
not
like
Warcraft.
yeah, that one is just like a classic of just
Oh,
the how'd you say it? A perfect depiction of like the stereotypical computer gamers and
yep.
like how important World of Warcraft is to them, or it was at the time. Um, but man,
Still kind of
so I
is.
know I'm at 4, but I think I mean if we're going back to like the earlier seasons, I mean when Cartman goes back in time to no goes forward in time, he kills himself on accident, but he doesn't kill himself, and he goes or he freezes himself because he wants to it's taken too long for the Nintendo Wii to come out, and it's coming out in like
Oh
2
my
weeks.
gosh,
And he
yes.
like freezes himself in the snow outside and ends up like, the episode takes this, not a tangent, but kind of following that story where all of a sudden he
Yeah.
wakes up like 3,000 years in the future. And obviously the Wii had been released, but they're like way past that at this point. His whole point is to like get a Nintendo Wii. He gets involved in this like future war that affects the past and is just like, and you can actually see that because and then and therefore like in that kind
Yeah,
of storytelling because it's so like just takes these turns. But yeah, I'd have to say that's one that popped into my head. But
that's a good one.
I mean there's so many.
Yeah.
If you're not a South Park fan on this and you're listening to this, like my gosh, if you don't mind kind of immature comedy, the satire is so relevant to things that were going on or things that have happened, points that they were making. So it's a very well done, consistent show that's not afraid to pull punches, and it just I will always be a
Absolutely.
fan of South Park. I don't care if I'm 70 years old. If they release a new episode, I will be the first one watching it.
They'll be watching it. They'll be on season like 120 by then. Who knows? I would say though, I
Right.
mean, in addition to World of Warcraft one, you briefly mentioned it, but Man Bear Pig, just the
Yeah.
whole nuance of Al Gore, and his global warming thing in real life, his agenda. But then
Tried to be
South
taken
Park
seriously.
creators, yeah, they caveated that to where global warming was this mysterious creature called Man Bear Pig. He's quote unquote half man, half bear, and half pig. And they basically spend the entire episode trying to hunt down and find Man Bear Pig. And then I'm not gonna spoil it. So if you guys are curious, go watch the episode. Really, really funny. But they definitely do a little play on that
Yeah.
whole Al Gore
And I hate to be a
situation.
South Park I hate to be a South Park historian, but he's trying to no one will hang out with Al Gore, and his whole thing was global warming and whatnot, and he lost and everything, and he's trying to be still be relevant. So he like no adults will hang out with him, so he finds the kids and tells them about Man Bear Pig. And they go into this cave of the winds, which is a real cave in Colorado, and he claims they're chasing it. And he ends up just getting them completely screwed and almost killed. And
Trapped in
I
the
mean, again,
cave.
that's not the
Yeah.
full episode. That's not the full episode, but
Yeah.
um, uh, yeah, he brings up. I mean, I don't think he really talks about global warming in that episode, but they make fun of it
No, the
because
whole play is it's Man Bear Pig. It's not global
yeah,
warming. Man Bear Pig is global warming. They just don't
yeah.
directly say it.
Wow,
And then there's the
wow,
Ozempic one.
wow.
What?
Never made that connection. Literally,
What?
you just did that for me. I was like,
Man Bear Pig? Really?
yeah, I just thought like Man Bear Pig was one thing, and he just wanted attention and global warming because he is in other episodes where he like talks about global warming, mainly Man
Yeah.
Bear Pig. Maybe I'm even
Man
wrong
Bear
about
Pig
that.
is global warming.
Gosh,
That's why it's so
that,
creative. You're just like,
damn,
dang,
dude,
that's
damn.
hilarious. But and then of
There's
course
so
one of
many
the more recent
things.
ones. Go
Go ahead.
ahead. Oh, we're doing this awkward stalemate. You go ahead.
Right. I was gonna say there's so many things that are so obvious, but I just don't get them for the longest time. Like, remember on one of I think the second podcast we released, I said I don't understand what dating yourself means.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Zach,
That
one
was
of our
the
buddies.
first one. I'm pretty sure
Oh, the
that was
first
the first episode that is
not like the first episode.
under that was the first episode. I'm pretty
No, it
sure.
wasn't.
It wasn't?
No, that was the second first episode.
It wasn't the one
But
locked away under vault and key.
he called me, our buddy Zach, and he was like, "Yeah, that means like you're dating yourself in terms of like you're saying a date, or that would give you the ability to be aged in terms of like because
Yep.
I'm dating myself, that means that therefore I'm this old." You know, so you give people the ability to figure out your age because you're like back in 1987 when I was, 17, and you're like, oh, I'm dating myself now, like carbon
Yep.
dating for
Exactly.
your person.
For yourself.
So I didn't know that, and I that when that hit me, it also hit me like a ton of bricks. I wrecked my car right after that because it was so astounding. I just went into a ditch, and
Yep.
no one was hurt, but
He's
no more
on his
car.
fourth car now because of how many revelations he's had as of late.
Worst thing that can happen to me while driving is I have a revelation. Everyone on the road is in danger of it being the last time they realize something is happening like I'm doing in that car.
Exactly. Just like Sir Isaac Newton. He just had those epiphanies of the natural laws and all that stuff that he
Walked
poured
away
his
from it,
whole
right?
life work into, and then he's just like, dang. Except he got hit in the head with an apple, you know. Just kidding. We'll
I
dive
don't
into
think
that later.
I don't think
But
that's true.
yeah. No, I would say those are definitely some of the more creative episodes, without a doubt. That you could literally go back and watch multiple times and probably never ever get bored of them. But lest we digress about South Park, because we
Yeah.
could talk about that for a while. And for those that haven't watched it, this might be a little bit boring for you. But we're about to
If you
crank it
haven't
up.
watched if you haven't watched South Park, like I just don't think there's a way you could avoid it at a certain age. Like you're gonna see
Yeah.
an episode somehow. Like it's gonna be
Yep.
on a random TV or something like that. So if
Yep.
you've managed to dodge it this long, then good for you. You're good at dodging stuff, and you should you should develop that skill.
Start a dodgeball team.
Hey,
That would be my
you can dodge a
recommendation.
wrench, you can dodge a ball.
Exactly. Dodge, duck, dip, dive, and dodge.
Dodge.
In the famous words of Patches O'Houlihan, the expert dodgeball coach from the movie, fun fact, Dodgeball. That's what it's from.
Classic. Quite the
Yes.
classic. What were we
But I was going to
digressing
say,
to? We were bringing
no,
up
I was going to
something
say,
else.
yeah, lest we digress, do you know what is coming up in less than a week? Something that is significantly huge in said election season? It is the next presidential debate. Are you excited for it? Curious to hear anything specifically mentioned out of it, or any thoughts, or anything that you're keeping an eye out for coming up?
I appreciate the question. Um, our team's working on this. I'm kidding. I
I
am
plead the
very
fifth.
right. I'm not actually taking questions right now, but we'll get back to you as soon as we can. No, I think the idea of debates is a good idea, but it's just like everything else in our political systems has been weaponized in regards to they're not. I'm not saying it's for both sides. They don't like if you think that having people talk on stage for a couple hours without and not even talk on stage for a couple hours, be constantly interrupted, you know, trail off on the topic, never answer questions. If you think that's an accurate or good way to understand someone's policies and whatnot, then I'm not saying if you think, I mean, I just don't feel like it is. And, I feel like it's become such a area of trying to gain essentially likes, trying to gain attention from it that a lot of times, I mean, when I've watched debates in the past, I very rarely come in like I can't tell you one time I've come away being like, okay, that's their plan for this issue. It's always like very exaggerative terms of what we need to fix, and like they talk about them, they talk how bad it is, they blame it on someone else, they talk about someone else's past. I just barely ever hear people actually saying, well, this is what we're going to do to fix this. And it's just like, am I excited to see Trump versus Kamala? Yes, because I really would like to see whether or not she has any talent as a presidential candidate. Because, like, if he's obviously going to be the one to push her on her heels, make her uncomfortable, and if she just starts laughing and cackling like she always does, I have no
Yeah.
confidence or like it scares me because I'm not I would vote for Trump. I'll say that right now, but I don't think that we have very good options at all
Yeah.
in terms of
Like,
like
this is what it's resorted to.
exactly. It's like these are the options we have. And I'm much more conservative. I'm in favor of Trump's policies, in general. But I mean, the dude's got a mouth on him that he never really like it's he's always playing, how'd you say, fix what I just not even doesn't he doesn't really like play fix what I just said. He just keeps going, but at the same time, he's very if you ask him one question, like by the end of the question, it's on a completely different topic. And that's the only thing like
Yeah.
I watch his interview with, you know, um I didn't watch the one with Elon Musk, but with the comedian, what's his name?
Theo Vaughn.
Theo Vaughn. And it's just like he would ask some really good questions. And again, I support Trump. I support his policies for the most part. And it's just like it's not answering the question in a way that at least I'm satisfied with like, okay, I have a further understanding of how you're planning to attack this. Maybe there's things that I wouldn't be able to understand. So, you got to cater to who you're speaking to or your crowd. But long way to answer your question. I apologize. I'm definitely excited to see that type of interaction play out. I would love for Trump to win, but I really think that Kamala is she just hasn't I'm not going to call her incompetent, but she hasn't done anything, in my opinion, to prove any type of competence. And if she gets up
Yep.
there and word salads and just laughs at everything and tries to turn it into you know, um, a jab match, just trying to get that,
Yep.
stick that one in there. Because I mean, when someone does that, your best option is to not play the game with them, because if they're inviting you into a game like that, they're gonna have the
Yep.
advantage there. Trump's gonna have the advantage if you turn it into a crap talking match.
Yep.
So I'm very interested to see whether or not she'll prove any type of competence.
Yeah. I'm right there with you. I mean, it's gonna be very interesting just in general because I mean, Kamala really, you only have seen her reading off a teleprompt. You know, like any time throughout her time as vice president, I have yet to see a time, even at conventions, just normal speeches, appearances, rallies, always off a teleprompt. I will give Trump this that he is good at speaking off the cuff. And I
Yeah,
totally agree with you that he does get lost in the weeds at times to where it's just like, okay, I mean, just looking at the last debate, Trump versus Biden, it started off well, but it kind of trickled off towards the end to where the moderators were asking questions. But then it was like it got to a point to where almost both candidates were like, let me get my talking points in regardless of whatever the question was. Like sitting there utilizing the time that they can talk to push their talking points across while totally ignoring what the moderators just asked. And
yeah,
I think if Trump can kind of tone it back in that sense and really dial in to answer questions intentionally to communicate, properly to the American public, but then also not taking the bait when it is thrown and not
yeah,
letting himself go down those rabbit holes. I mean, to me, I don't think she's going to be able to remotely keep up. I don't think she
yeah,
will in general, as is. Of course, both candidates will have their talking points going into it, but I could see her being basically a copy of Biden and just literally focusing on, all right, here's what I need to say. This is what I'm going to say. I'm not going to necessarily think off my feet like Trump can. Trump has a natural
yeah.
gift in that sense.
100%. And I'm just interested to see if at the end of the debate I'm going to understand more of what people are actually going to try to do. I apologize, to fix the issues they bring up. I don't care what the issue is. I would just like to have some type of, like, hey, this is where we're at with my administration. This is what I think we could do. This is why. This is how long I think it would take. And it's just, I just get so tired of, it's just like checking boxes. It's just like, all right, let's, we have to put a debate in front of them, like, all right, do the debate. And they don't care if it's not substantive at all.
Yeah.
Like, they don't care if at the end of the day, no one freaking understands anything more. It's just like, all right, we did the debate. All right, now on to the next move. Now on to this. So, and I don't even know who to say they. I mean, well, actually, I didn't want to say it. Like, I don't even want to not attribute proper blame where it needs to be. Like, it's not, no one's, everyone who's showing us this, no matter what side you're on, is just trying to push their own agenda. And it's just like,
Yeah.
you really have to dig deep and viewpoints from both sides to understand what was actually said outside of watching it, and versus someone else's opinion on it. So um
Yeah.
what I'm trying to say is it's just really hard to take that and believe that I'm going to get something really substantive out of it, you know
Right.
um but I
Yeah.
definitely am interested to watch it.
I am too. I mean, it's just going to be an interesting next couple months. I mean, considering, what you take into account what happened over the last week and a half or so, RFK dropping out of the presidential race, endorsing Trump, which was absolutely massive
Yeah,
as he was running as an independent. I mean, endorsing Trump is huge, getting hopefully, a lot of those independent voters pulled over. There was one mainstream, historically been very, very liberal. Cornell West, I believe, is his name. Pro Democrat. like extreme left for years and years and years, and all of a sudden came out and if I'm remembering correctly, he actually endorsed Trump because he's so
Yeah.
sick of what's currently happening right now. Um, for a cliche term, politics has become too politicized. It's at a point now to where I'm sticking with that. I was thinking about that, for a while now. I'm like, it's so true. Politics has become too politicized because everyone's in it for their own gain. I'm not saying throughout our nation's history or just world history, people haven't
Yeah.
entered politics or whatever government for their own personal gain. But in today's time, I feel like it's at an all time high. They're they could say they're for the people, but frankly,
Yeah.
what's happened over the last however many years, it's just literally gone downhill. If there was exponential growth, this is exponential decrease. To a
Yeah.
resounding level. So, all that to say, I don't know. I wish people would take bias out. And obviously, that's the hardest thing that anyone could ever do is take your bias out of anything to see a viewpoint basically contradictory to what you would normally believe in or, view a point from. But just take the bias out of it. Like all those people that are just never Trumpers. Why? Like ask yourself why? Why are you a never Trumper? Is it because you just don't like him or is it truly because you don't like his policies and vice versa? Like there's no, I feel like middle ground in America anymore. It's either you are extremely far left or you're right. There's no like of course there are moderates, independents, all that stuff, but I just feel like both sides of the spectrum have grown even more significantly apart in the last couple of years than it's probably ever been in history.
I mean, in history, I don't. I think one of the things that we learn as we go on in politics, war, anything really. And just to say, on the last podcast, I was talking about the Book of Five Rings, not the Art of War. I got that wrong. Just wanted to correct that. But in terms of the things we're seeing, I don't think it's ever been less. In terms of the hot button issues that really separate a Republican versus a Democrat, whatever party you want to be about. I just think the access to information has made it so in your face that it's agitated people more than it ever could in the past. And not that it couldn't in the past, but like those little instances of you being fed an algorithm where you're seeing something that supports your political views and that demonizes the other side, even if you're not giving much credence to them, they are affecting you. They're stacking on a pile in your brain and you're taking in that data. So I think the access to information is will be one of our downfalls as a society, is how we have to work less to get information, therefore information can take extreme advantage of us. And so yeah, I just think that the issue has always been there, but we're just seeing a hyper version of that because people can literally pull out their phone and get access to all this stuff that they don't even know is true, but they're going to believe.
Yeah.
But in terms of what you were saying, it's become very bipartisan. And the thing I really hate about that is there is no such thing as a Democrat that doesn't support abortion, quote unquote, rights. There is no such thing as a Republican that does support abortion, quote unquote, rights. And you can't have mostly conservative views and disagree with one hot button issue, or else you're not part of the party. And I think that is
Yeah.
exactly what our founding fathers were trying to alleviate and keep from happening. And I mean, man, we're only a little over 200 years old as a country. Um, we live in this, and it was longer than we've been alive, and our parents have been alive. That it started. So it's very easy to be like, oh, this has always been here. 200 years in the span of all the empires that have ever been on Earth or countries rising and falling is like 1 second.
Yeah.
So we don't correct this fast to where it's so divided that and we're just completely fed and pushed it apart, like drifting in the ocean, as you're just farther and farther apart, then this country is going to lose its world power status I mean, I don't know if it happened in our lifetime, but we'd eventually get invaded. We'd be broken up, and it's just we're only like 200 something years old. Like we
Yeah.
really need to change course.
Almost, I mean, almost spot on 250 years. And basically, I mean, you've heard it before, I'm sure, but on average throughout history, superpowers, world powers, whatever, empires at the time, you want to know what their average lifespan was? 250
Uh,
years.
yeah, and we're
So
right on that same course, man. And it's
we're
just,
right on the bubble.
oh man, and it's happening aggressively, and it's so crazy because it's like getting addicted to something. When you are getting addicted to something is not when you realize it. Like you get addicted in the times where you're not addicted.
Yep.
And then you reach that precipice or try to change course, and all of a sudden you're like, oh wait, this is integral to me having a good day, or this is integral to me feeling as if I can have a good day, or whatever that might be. And that's what we're doing, dude. We are just addicted to everything being easy. We
Yep.
think that it's going to continue that way because of quote unquote government or whatever your reason may be. I don't know. But they think that these institutions are so powerful or strong that like they'd still be there, or that they have some ability to carry us through the hard times. All the government is people. It's just
Yep.
people.
And we have lost
And
sight of that.
yeah, and it's like there is
Don't put
no
your faith
bot
in
like
government.
yeah, there is no like one government. The government is all these different sections of people that have this line below them that say if you cross this line, you're part of the government. But the only people who are actually working to change things that affects all these other people in the government and the money they can spend have made a pretty tight two groups at the top. And
Yep.
yeah, it's just I mean, I could go on forever about that. I just so to kind of get back to your point, I'm I definitely am gonna look into the debate. I'd love to see the highlights. I'd love to watch it, but I'm just this country is at such a gridlock right now that even if you're listening, whoever your candidate is, even if they get in, what can they do in 4 years, especially when, they're just gonna be fighting another side that's kicking and screaming the whole time. It's
Well,
just
and
like
that's where,
it's enough to like lift up the band-aid, but you
yep.
just put it right back down as soon as it's done. Because everything kind of
Yep.
like shifts back. It's just we don't really change much.
Yep. Well, and it's, I mean, where the change actually happens is the House and the Senate as well, being the same party that the president is.
Yeah.
That's where stuff starts to happen. So it's going to be interesting. I mean, if Republicans can win out, then, you know, policies and all that can start to change.
Yep.
Otherwise, if Democrats went out and Republicans maintain House and all that stuff, it's going to be another gridlock. So very situational.
Well, I'm not saying that they don't have, especially when you control the House and the Senate and your party gets elected. But in terms of, you said, policies that would get across the goal line, if it's not a continued another 4 year Republican nominee, the next 4 years is working to undo all of those policies.
Yeah,
So
it's
it's
just a
just
back and forth.
exactly that's what I'm saying. So we don't like really
Yep.
ever change the course way too much. We're just like, oh, to the right, and then they pull it
Yeah.
back to the left, and it's just like I'm really excited for, I'd like things to be like 2019 again, where gas was
Yeah.
220 a gallon, and I mean not even
Cheaper than
that.
that.
Gas was like right, like
Cheaper
I
than
saw
that.
gas for 194, but
Yeah. Well,
I'm just
that's what
wary of
closing
actually.
Keystone Pipeline and all of that stuff down did day one from the current administration. We go from a free market, freed up economy that's not restricted, where people aren't literally fear mongered into holding on to their money by policy that induces inflation, increases gas prices like we've seen over the last 4 years. I mean, just gas alone, let alone basic groceries, how much cost has gone up because of current policies that have been implemented, literally overturning what Trump had implemented during his first term. I mean, there's a reason why gas was as cheap as it was. And there's a reason why gas is as expensive as it is now.
Yeah.
I mean,
And
it's not complicated. It really is not. It's just a matter of agenda and what you're trying to push. And
I'm
unfortunately, a majority of that weight gets then flipped on the American people who have to deal with poor policy.
yeah. And I was gonna say, I'm sure if you're listening to this and you don't share, more of a conservative political value pool, then you're probably enraged at what we're saying. I'm not saying that there's not counterpoints and there's not good points from both sides. We just happen to fall more on one than the other. But one of the facts is that for the past 16 years, the Democratic Party has been in charge for 12 of those. And we're at where we're at now. So that's the type of stuff that I'm saying. Like, I'd like that to be asked in a debate and have like a logical, thought out answer in terms of like, hey, you say what you want about Trump, but for the past 16 years, you guys have been in control for 3/4 of that.
Yep.
Why are the issues that are here today, outside of mentioning Trump? Why are they here? What'd you do to contribute? How are you guys going to fix that going forward and alleviate these?
Yep.
And it's just like, that's the type of stuff I would like to hear in terms of a debate. I really have a very high doubt that I'm going to hear good
Yeah.
answers.
But fingers crossed. Hopefully we will. But
Fingers
I know
crossed.
politics is something that everyone can literally talk about for probably way longer than what is good for them. So
Yeah.
we'll leave that drop in the bucket and move
And
on
coming
to a
to a
more
dinner
fun
party
topic.
near you, right?
Exactly. If you want to create chaos and grudges, bring up politics. Today's day and age. But let's move on to something a little more exciting. And it's a little segment that we briefly mentioned at the end of last week's episode. And that is drum roll. I'm going to see if I can find like a drum roll sound effect I'll throw in there. But drum roll, please. Who would win in a fight? We had some pretty awesome submissions from our listeners. And I don't think we'll make it to all of them just because there's a lot of good ones out there. But kicking it off, and I will preface, I am not super knowledgeable about some of these worlds and these lores and histories, so you'll have to pardon me. But I definitely do have my biases, and I'm sure they will absolutely come to fruition in this conversation. But kicking off, I will ask you this one, Keegan. Are you ready?
Can we
Behind
get
door
more
number
than
one,
Okay, go ahead.
behind door number one, who would win in a fight? Dumbledore versus Gandalf.
Oh, man.
Because I know you've seen
Um,
Harry Potter and you've seen Lord of the Rings. This is one topic. I'm sorry, audience. I have not seen Harry Potter. I know who Dumbledore is, but I
not
don't
even
know
one
much
of them.
about him. Not even one of them. Haven't even read a word of the book. Um, I know who Harry is. He's a troll.
Yeah, he's
Yeah,
like a side
cool, cool,
character.
cool, cool. Yeah, not more like the side quest thing.
Yeah,
He's more
he's
one of the
mentioned once
guys
or
you
twice.
run into on the road. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, with your knowledge of both universes, I'll chime in a little bit on this one. But Dumbledore versus Gandalf. Go.
Well, I mean, the easiest way to compare it is to try to break down I wouldn't say the easiest way, but one way to try to objectively do it is break down, the intense situations that they were both in movies and identify who had the most resources to get out of those Situations. Did I say that wrong?
Situations.
Situations. Jeez. But
Situations.
situations. But
Situations.
Dumbledore was always painted as powerful, but he was never, in my opinion, and I could be forgetting things, he wasn't put in any massive situations where he had to like really exercise his power. He was very he had an agenda the entire time. He had a plan. He was fighting Voldemort, and I mean, long story short, I think Gandalf would win. but I think that there'd be a lot of things that we wouldn't expect from Dumbledore to happen. Actually, even saying that out loud, like the thing about casting spells is like you can essentially direct it at someone. Gandalf was he was casting spells, but they weren't as like direct. It's not like he's casting them specifically at someone. They were more affecting the situation around him. You know what I mean? With a wand, you're
Yep.
directing at someone. So I think in terms of just pure battle hardness, I mean Gandalf would whoop that ass because uh, I think
uh,
he can wield a
how do you
sword.
really feel? How do you really feel?
I mean, here's the thing, and if the spells don't work, and if Gandalf or if Dumbledore can't keep Gandalf actually away from him, or Gandalf has a way to combat his spells, all or if Dumbledore has a way, or yeah, Gandalf has a way to combat his spells, all Gandalf needs to do is get in close because the dude is
Yeah,
actually a skilled fighter that carried a sword a lot in the movie and really actually fought alongside people. I don't think Dumbledore is represented as that. I don't even think in his younger life he was. Again, it's always focused on what's behind the wand. And if Gandalf in any way, shape, or form was able to get past that and the three spells and whatnot, like the Cruxius or the Vada Kedavra and the forbidden spells, if he was able to modify that in any way and keep it from immediately disabling him, then he would make Dumbledore regret ever picking up the wand. And so, yeah, I think at the end of the day, I think Gandalf would, again, for lack of a better term, whoop that ass.
fair point. And I will say, I mean, in referencing the Fellowship of the Ring, when they are in the mines of Moria and Khazad Dûm, the former home of the dwarves, before it got taken over. I'm not going to say any spoilers. Go watch it if you haven't.
It was
But
gentrified.
when they are, yes, when they
I'll
are
let you know
almost
later on
out
that.
of the mines, they run into said giant creature, the Balrog. Okay. Super powerful, evil creature, blah, blah, blah. Um, the thing, basically, you know how that plays out. Again, no spoilers. I'll do my best. But after said thing happens to Gandalf, and then it fast forwards to the Two Towers, the second Lord of the Rings, Gandalf comes back after what happened to him. Like, dude doesn't die. He dies, but he comes back. So it's just like, even in those moments, without going total nerd mode and full explanation as to why, um, Gandalf came back even stronger. So I don't know. It's just like, even if assuming Dumbledore could probably get something in, um, I mean, Gandalf could always come back better and stronger as well and more powerful.
I think what Dumbledore has on Gandalf is the ability to. I don't think that Gandalf doesn't have the ability to plan, but in the movies, Dumbledore had a plan from the first movie to the last movie of how he was going to, defeat Voldemort and utilize Harry to do that. So I think that Gandalf has the not Gandalf, Dumbledore has a really good ability in being able to not only figure something out but also suffer. Because then I think it was the fourth movie when he's going for these Horcruxes with Harry, he has to essentially do the Horcruxes. The Horcruxes are Voldemort's soul split into different pieces, and it's how he stays alive. Because every time one of his versions gets killed, he reincarnates his soul into one of these pieces that he's put there. And I don't think if you haven't watched Harry Potter, at this point this is your fault. Harry, the whole thing is Harry is one of the Horcruxes. He has part of Voldemort's soul in him, and that's why like Harry has to die, but at the same time he has to come back because they have to save him. So I say all that to say that I think that Dumbledore proved in the movies and in the story that he was willing to suffer because one of these challenges is he has to drink this cup, all this liquid in this thing, and it puts him through. I forget exactly what it was, but like the worst possible suffering that he could conceive. And but I also think that's matched by Gandalf's when he fought the Belrog, he fell stories and stories and stories and fought it in the air and was getting punched and all this stuff. And he, I don't even, did he really die? I guess he did.
He
But
technically he did, yes.
so he went on like I mean, in terms of like what Dumbledore has outside of spells is planning and the ability to suffer. I think that's pretty equally matched, though. So I just think that
Yep.
it would come down to like the nitty gritty, and in the nitty gritty, Gandalf would impale him with a sword, and then probably look at him in the face and be like,
Got
"Magic
you.
is stupid."
Why
But
use it when you can use a sword?
right. So yeah,
Yep. So overall
so I think
consensus,
he's in one.
Gandalf.
Yeah, I
Gandalf,
think
Gandalf won.
yeah.
All right. I like it. I like it. This one's going to be interesting. James Bond versus Jason Bourne versus John Wick. Who you got?
I know who yours is. Yours is John Wick.
Yeah, I mean, that's just a given.
You tell me
All
why.
John Wick needs is a pencil. That's it. I mean, straight up, done deal.
I think
Game over.
I think Jason Bourne would be John Wick's biggest challenge because if you go watch the director's cut of the first Jason Bourne, one thing the director specifically says is we wanted to humanize the secret agent in a way in terms of like we didn't always want him to have a gun, we didn't always want him to have a weapon on him. So there's a scene where like he's fighting this guy and he has to like wrap up a news or a magazine and use it as like a really hard stick or like find a
Yeah,
pen that he ends up stabbing the guy with. So Jason specifically has that skill as well in terms of utilizing the environment around him to then the reason I don't want to say it would be Jason, but in terms of my realistic brain, there was a lot more situations where Jason Bourne was put through realistic situations where you're like, oh, this dude's like a true badass versus like a 20-minute
right.
scene where you shoot everyone in the head. But he also takes a lot of damage. It's not like a perfect scene.
Yep,
I think that's
yep.
what John Wick would have over Jason Bourne is like I just don't think he would stop.
Yeah. I mean, we've seen it in literally all four movies. Like John Wick continues to go and go and go, even if
Yeah,
he's shot multiple times, stabbed, you name it. And I will give Jason Bourne that we did see more of an origin story as to how and why he became what he became and why he was so feared. But we
yeah,
kind of came in the middle of John Wick, basically just knowing he's the Baba Yaga, the boogeyman for a reason. And
yeah.
every single person who has ever heard of John Wick knows he has that reputation and the name Baba Yaga. So, all that to say, I mean, it'd be an awesome fight. I don't think James Bond would be the first one to go, personally. And then it'd be down to the two. But I think John Wick would end up. I think it would be a fairly, I don't want to say a close fight, but John Wick would absolutely come out on top.
That was a good point though, in terms of the reason I think my logical brain leans more to Jason Bourne is because you were able to see his build up and watch him. Well, actually, you do come into Jason Bourne's
Kind
life
of.
when he was already that thing. He was already
Right.
that secret agent. He just lost his memory. So I
Yep.
mean, but you do get to see him kind of walk through the stages to becoming even more of a badass. So you have like more credence to believe that he would have, at the end of the day, a strong ability to have the upper hand, or at least be equally matched. I mean,
Right.
honestly, man, I think just because of the lore around John Wick, it's hard not to give him the win because he's that
Yep.
guy that just everyone thinks he's dead and then he's not dead and he's killing everyone.
Surprise.
Yeah, right. And Jason Bourne is more of like they know he's there. He's just really hard to find, and he's
Yep.
on the run, trying to get away, kind of reacting. So I would have to give it to John Wick as well, but by a very slim margin. But also, one thing we need to throw in there is: are we talking about the Bond that we grew up with? Or are we talking about what's his name, the most recent
Daniel
Bond
Craig.
actor, Daniel Craig? Because Daniel Craig really did put a lot more humanism to Bond in
Oh,
terms of like
absolutely.
having to be really scrappy and get through these situations. Whereas the old movies were always like he has a laser in his watch. Oh, he's
Yeah.
this his torpedo underwater boat is right outside, and it was there because they knew this was going to happen. So it's
Right.
yeah. I think at the end of the day, John Wick would come out on top, but I really, really, really
Yeah.
believe that it's by like the slimmest of margins.
It would be close for sure. I mean, it wouldn't be like one person's mopping the floor with the others.
No,
It
not at all.
would come down to it, but I think order of operations, James Bond would be the first one to go, Jason Bourne, and then John Wick would end up ultimately topping out.
Yeah, it'd be interesting as heck. So
Yeah.
I think we're agreed on that one. And guys, please give us your feedback. If you disagree with what we're saying, we'd love to hear why. But just know that we're right.
Yep. And you're wrong because it's John Wick. Mr.
We
Wick.
actually talked to him about this.
Yeah. Keanu Reeves is a special guest on the podcast next week. So I'm just kidding.
Amen.
What if Keanu Reeves like actually somehow came across this and he reached out and he's like, heck yeah, I'll be on your podcast. I'd be like, we got to talk to our people, make sure scheduling, we just can't fit you in, man.
I'll have my people contact your people, and we'll see where it goes. But good idea.
Exactly. We'll kick the can down the road. Our time's
Maybe
valuable, We got
take a
stuff to
week
talk
to
about.
apply.
But no, that would be awesome. Keanu Reeves, if you somehow ever remotely come across this, you are awesome and you should totally be on our podcast. We'll give you
Be
like
the one to do it.
$5 because that's all we have really to our names. Again, going with the
That's sick.
aspect, we might have money, but we just pretend like we don't. All right. So out of that list, what do you want to jump to next?
I mean, I had added a few to that list, so let me pull it up real quick and just see. Um, Here it is. So, an Su-57 versus F-22 Raptor.
Would you go F-22 or F-35? I know
I'm
one
not
of our
much of a.
listeners will call us out after the fact if we don't say F-35.
Oh yeah,
Shout out
I
Kingpin.
yes sir. He's out there listening somewhere. But I honestly, I'd like to keep. From what I understand, I could be completely wrong on this. I think the F-22 is a more capable air-to-air fighter in terms of the turns it can pull and whatnot. The F-35 is pretty capable as well, but it's much more focused on being able to hit something without ever knowing that it was going to hit it in the first place. And that's what it was described to me as, when the movie Top Gun came out. And just for background, both of our dads are Air Force pilots, so this has been something, that's been in our lives for a long time. But when that movie came out and they're talking about the F-14 versus the Su-57, a pilot was like, well, literally the difference is there would be no instance where an F-14 and Su-57 have the ability to do air-to-air combat because the Su-57 would be able to spot and take out the F-4 or the F-14 before it ever even knew the other plane was there. So I think that you could very much, and I guess the Su-57 is faster as well, so it would potentially be able to get away if it needed to, or maybe engage quicker. I don't necessarily know where that all plays in, but I think if you updated the Raptor, which I'm sure they have, with similar weapons to the Su-57 and radar capabilities, that it would be, I think we'd win.
Well, crazy enough, I'm doing some information pull on the Su-57. It first flew in 2010 and was actually put into production began in 2019. So it's a newer, next gen fighter for the Russians.
Yeah,
So the
for sure.
Su-57 hasn't been around for very long at all. So I mean, that might be their version of the F-35, but I I mean, talking with individuals, the F-35 is hands above. Bar none, F-35 is way more capable than the Su-57. But when it comes to the F-22, yeah, I would say the F-35 is like pinnacle of aircraft right now, and then right below is F-22. Absolutely. Um, I don't know much about the Su-57 besides it being, more of their Russia's more modern aircraft or next gen fighter. But the F-22's been around for how long has the F-22 been around?
I couldn't say. I don't know, but it's been a little while at this point.
Been around for how long? So the F-22 has been around for 20 years. So relatively newer, um, chronologically not as new as the Su-57, but capability wise, yeah, just with its maneuverability alone, um, I mean, it's. I feel like it's bar none and would have. I don't want to say no issues against an Su-57, but it would have no issues against an Su-57.
I think that a F-35 has less maneuverability than the F-22. I don't know that for a fact, that I believe that's true, but in terms of,
Let's look it up.
I mean, again, I could be completely wrong on this, but it seems that those two planes are so advanced that they're essentially different chassis. They might have a different engine system or something of the sort, but they're very similar in regards to what you can kind of put on it. And I think that, I mean, the Su-57 is a twin engine. It's not a small plane, and it can go faster. But in terms of maneuverability, I would want an upgraded F-22. And the Raptor is obviously also probably extremely maneuverable as a fifth
Yeah,
gen fighter or fourth
from
gen
what
fighter.
I'm from what I'm seeing, the F-22's considered more maneuverable than the F-35.
Yeah, so
Um,
I think that if we're talking about,
70,000 pounds of thrust. Gee.
wow, it's almost
Is
as much as I
capable
weigh.
of going Mach 2.2 compared to the F-35's Mach 1.6. But obviously, this is just information gathered from the internet. We are not privy to any extra information that is talked about confidentially, top secret, security clearance wise, behind the scenes. So, what we're reading could be completely not true. I mean, there's obviously way more potential capability for the F-35 that is out there that we as the general public have absolutely no idea about. Shout out Kingpin.
Well, our buddy, who we reference as Kingpin, works at Lockheed Martin on the F-35 program, and he is obviously a wealth of knowledge when it comes to these things. And he's got,
But also not because he's not allowed to talk
yeah,
about a lot of
I was
stuff.
gonna say he's got multiple top secret clearances, but so he definitely gets annoyed by me of all people, because I will always push on and be like, how close can we get to aliens? Like, what can you tell me?
How
And
many UFOs do we have in our possession?
exactly. Like, there was one day I was talking to him, he was leaving work, and I was like, what were you doing at work? And he was like, I was in one of our labs. And I was like, what do you mean by that? And he kept on just like not giving. I was like, I'm not asking you what's in the lab. I was asking you, is it a lab like they said in college, where it's a lab and you're going to work on something, or is it like a lab with things in that lab that are specific to that lab? Where they keep things, like what you think of when you think of like a science laboratory. And it was the latter, and also why he was like, please stop asking. I can't. Don't
Yeah.
don't ask me things like this.
Yeah. Are the labs where you work on the alien technology? That'd be the
I
next
like
follow up question from Keegan.
I like kill the engine to his car and be like, this isn't turning back on until you tell
Exactly.
me.
Be like,
Yeah,
you're
I'd
going to
love to
tell
know.
me everything. Wouldn't
I
that
think
be
we would
cool?
all love to know. But which
Oh,
one
yeah,
should we finish
100%.
on? We
Yep.
got time for one more.
I was just about to say. So I picked two. You pick the last one. You pick two as well.
Okay. Oh crap. Let's see.
We need some like nice kind of waiting room lobby music playing.
Right.
Dun, dun,
Um,
dun, dun.
you want to do samurai versus a knight, a tiger versus a
Yes.
bear versus a gorilla? Which one?
Samurai versus Knight. Heck yeah. Oh man. I mean, super quick rapid fire answer, Samurai.
I don't think so.
Really?
Not
Would you
because
pick a
not
Knight
because the
just because of the
samurai.
armor?
Well, yeah, exactly. Because have you ever seen these videos of like people who do this as a sport? They put on real knight's armor and they fight
Yeah.
each other. weapons that are actually decently sharp. They're not dull, but no
Yep.
matter how freaking hard these people hit the other dude, I just cannot imagine someone being able to, obviously, like, you can get it in the spot in the armpit and the spots that aren't like protected. That's the goal. But in terms of the amount of damage someone can do before they die when someone does that to them, and even then there's chainmail beneath that. So you've got to stab or swing so hard to break chainmail. It's literally steel, or
Yep.
I'm pretty sure it is. But regardless, like, I just, no matter how good a samurai sword is, like, when after I've seen videos of those dudes just relentlessly beating the crap out of each other with decently sharp weapons and nothing happening, I'm just like, how did these fights end outside of like someone getting under that gear of someone else? Like, I just think a samurai would be, even if a samurai landed a kill shot in the time that he was trying to get away from that, that guy would be able to swing and hit him with one as well. And he's got a
Yeah.
lot more spots on his armor than a knight would. So I think skill wise, a
And it's
samurai
not
is
as dense
definitely
and
better.
durable. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
And
Skill
I
wise,
agree with
samurai.
that.
Yeah,
Yeah, just skill, tactic, finesse would definitely lean in the hands of a samurai. But if you're talking, I mean, I don't want to say it'd be a cheap fight, but at the same time, yeah, with a knight having all this chainmail on top of the armor and the helmet, the guards, the knee guards, shin guards, forearm guards, all that stuff, it's almost like, yeah, you could take literally a beating 3-1, arguably, versus, a samurai. His armor's a lot more docile and soft, at least I think.
that's how
Um,
people describe me.
Soft and docile, like a little
Hmm.
little baby gazelle in the Serengeti. He's
Eating
just a
spaghetti.
little baby gazelle. But yeah, no, I think, and that's a good point. I think the only reason the knight would probably come out on top is because of his armor,
Exactly.
which is like, I don't want to call it cheap, but at the same time, it's like kind of cheap. Because like if it
It is.
came down to actual combat, to me, a samurai would absolutely win.
And it just takes away from the romanticism of knights when you see that, because it's like, oh, these
Yeah,
were two dudes that were pretty good at sword skills, but eventually it just turned into like ja ja ja, like
yeah,
like
just
a
bare
skillless
knuckle
fight of
brawl.
just trying to, like,
Yeah,
yeah, like, or maybe, but again, we weren't back then. I'm sure there was methods we don't know about where they could easily do it, or do it much more easily. I know that if you point a sword well enough, you can split that chainmail. I just don't know how easy chainmail is to split at any variation of the sword versus the chainmail. So I'm sure that there's something we don't know about this, something the samurai could do to much
yeah.
more easily, you know, land some type of significant strike. But now if we took the
But it's
armor
like,
off,
oh
then
yeah,
samurai
take the armor.
100%.
Yeah. But at the same time, if you think about fatigue, samurai could be more maneuverable. I don't know if samurai armor was more lightweight per se,
100%
but
it was.
say a samurai gets into, a confined area to do a 1v1 against a knight. Knight's wearing all the heavy armor, the chainmail, the big broadsword, all that stuff. So theoretically, you could be like a Floyd Mayweather popping in and out just super quick, wearing
Yeah.
your opponent down physically. That could be another aspect and factor to
Yeah.
keep into account.
That's a big one in terms of, you like, because it's just so crazy to even think about. All right, we are in battle. We don't want to get stabbed. What's the easiest way to not get stabbed? Protect yourself with something. What's the best thing you can protect yourself with? Metal. Let's put metal all over our body. It's just
Yeah.
like a logical way to go about it, but at the end of the day, it becomes very illogical because it's so heavy, so cumbersome, so hard to get on. It's just not practical to have on a
Yeah.
consistent basis. And then even when you do, you have so many setbacks. So yeah, fatigue wise, maybe the samurai would have a massive advantage there because their armor was way, way, way more light. They
Yeah.
ran into battle. They didn't ride a horse into battle.
Although they did ride horses.
Well, they
Fun fact.
did,
They
but
did have
there was a lot
horses
of
in
them that
Japan.
ran into battle as well.
Yeah. I think the longer the fight would go on, the odds would tilt in the favor of a samurai.
Yeah. But I think one thing we also don't realize is how easy it is to bleed out. and be cut. Like if you get the wrong cut in the middle of a
Yeah.
fight, like you got 5 minutes before you can't, really contribute much anymore.
Yeah. So I don't know. It'd be if it was a short fight, knight, but the longer the duration, samurai.
For sure. So
That's
please
my
give us your
professional
feedback.
historical opinion. Yes.
Yeah.
For anyone
Any
that disagrees or has thoughts as to the fights that we talked about, please write in the comments for the world to see. Um, we appreciate you guys obviously contributing and chiming into everything that we talk about. We want to be engaging with you guys. We don't want to just be two individuals talking, not engaging to our listeners. We want you guys to engage as much as you want to. We absolutely welcome it. And two, just to keep reiterating, if you guys have any fun topics or things that you would like us to talk about, could be whatever, anything and everything. That's why it's called that for a reason. Shoot it in the comments. Let us know. I mean, we are happy to talk about literally anything and everything.
That is so true. Engage as much as you can. Don't do it too much. I'm kidding. Do it as much as you can. We love it. We appreciate the comments, negative or positive. We love feedback. So please do. I hope you guys enjoyed the topics tonight. A lot of them are random. A couple of them we plan to talk about. So again, anything and everything just kind of takes its own course every time we get on these mics. So hope you guys are enjoying it. Really appreciate anyone listening. Please come back for the next episode, and y'all have a great rest of the night. God bless you all.
Absolutely. We'll see you guys next week.